I'm the CEO who wants to give more autonomy, make people own their product decisions, how do I go from that not happening to them having more ownership?
The leader of the team and the company, your job is to get everyone solving the problems, and your job is to thus frame those problems.
How do you bring that out of the introverts on your team? How do you bring out their ideas?
Well, that's actually one of the techniques, is kind of allowing different frames for discussion and ideation. Try to create multiple avenues of communication and ideation for a team.
Welcome, Jeremy. Welcome, Jeremy, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start with the story of how we met. Do you remember how we met?
It was a rainy day in Cologne, in Germany, at Gamescom, at a Mexican restaurant. I was late, and you were still cool about it.
I was. We were going back and forth probably for like 2 years. I was trying to get you on a roundtable podcast probably 2 years ago. It was never the right time. I think you was at SYBO at the time, I remember. And then the next year was just another catch up, and then we happened to be at Gamescom at the same time.
That's right. I had a really strict policy of not doing podcasts with absolutely anyone. It wasn't you, it was me. And then I was like, okay, well, that policy doesn't make sense anymore. So weirdly, I didn't want to self-promote. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm not a smart man. But it was, I'm glad we met, because, wish it happened 2 years earlier, but I'm glad we met over Mexican food. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Why did you decide to meet in the end?
Well, I mean, I'm starting a company, and I'm trying to, instead of be the person behind the scenes, I'm now the CEO. So it's literally my job to be in front of things and talk about things. I always like talking about product and helping people understand. I am arrogant enough to think that I can give someone some idea of how to make their games better. I still am not arrogant enough to think I can make their companies better. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. But it's definitely something that I can give to people, and they will know more about me and about us and what we're doing. And even better, I love games. Like a lot of us do this. So I love the chance to maybe someone, even if it's by learning by through my failures, at least knowing how to make a better game or think about making games. If that helps anyone, that's super gratifying.
1,000%. What I want to do is kind of go through your LinkedIn just to give everyone a bit of an overview, because you've had quite the journey. So I'm literally just going to read out these titles here. So I started in 2003 as the assistant editor at the Sports Exchange. So this is editing content for Yahoo, Fox, CBS, around sports. Then you went to EA, working on Madden NFL as an assistant producer. You then went back to the Sports Exchange as the assistant editor, and returning as a copywriter for the first fantasy baseball and football player notes. And then you went to Quick Hit as a contract designer and writer. Then you moved into game design as a senior game designer. Then went to game designer on a mobile game at J&J Mobile. Then you moved on to GSN as the product manager, again mobile. And then moved on to senior product manager. Then to Jam City as the director of products, where you ended up being, again, this is in San Francisco. Then you moved over across the pond to London, and you was in Gram Games as the vice president of product. They make Merge Dragons, massive studio. And then you went and became the head of Copenhagen studio for SYBO, behind Subway Surfers, which is another move to Denmark. And then you went back to London as the general manager of the Tonic Games Group, leading Fall Guys. And then production development manager at Ginger Joy Games. And now you're the CEO of your own stealth startup. So quite the journey and quite the moves across the planet.
Yeah, my poor wife and my poor cats. I've been around. I mean, I think the kind of nomadic lifestyle is very familiar for game developers. I think I'm trying to stay in London for as long as I can now, both for my sake and my wife's sake. But yeah, I mean, it was a great chance to try different things. San Francisco was great because I have a lot of family there, and always wanted to get out to the Silicon Valley and that or around there. And get out to the Bay. I'm really glad I did. Jam City was just amazing place to be. And then London, getting to join Merge Dragons at the point it was at was really, unique, and thankfully that worked out really well. And we had a lot of growth and got to work with a lot of great people. But it'd been a dream to be back here. I was a nomadic child, so grew up in the Midwest, not just Minneapolis, but lots of different parts of the Midwest. But as a kid, moved to Amsterdam, so I had always had a dream of moving back to Europe. So getting to London just as London left Europe was whatever. I didn't plan it. It wasn't my part of my plan, but it's still close to them. Yeah, it's your fault. But it was great. I love it here. As I like to say, London. I love it so much here. I've moved here twice now.
Amazing. So if you're in a London taxi cab and someone asks you, what do you do for work? What do you say? Because that seems like a hard ask.
I go full American. I say I'm the most important game maker in all of London. No. I say I make games, and then they go, anything I've heard of. And if they have an English accent, I say, maybe Subway Surfers? Do you have any kids? So, it'll be followed by, do you play games? And then depending on what they ask. And sometimes they're like, oh, I play Fall Guys with my kids, or yeah, my teenager, whatever, play Fall Guys. And so it's different stuff like that. So yeah, it's on them to make games.
There's a lot of moving parts in making a game. So product, could you explain what product means in games? Like what part does product solve in making games?
Again, it depends. In lots of different companies, it means lots of different things. A product manager and a producer and even a designer can mean literally the same job. At EA, a lot of my job, even though this is a long time ago, they have distinctions now. But once upon a time, being a producer meant you were kind of a development manager and a designer, and actually doing some production work too, where you're scheduling and really managing the team, and less the actual engineering work. It really depends. But to me, product is, I think, really has two main bifurcations. It either means you are kind of the data person, really managing the business of what the game is, or you're someone who's really holistically thinking about how the game operates. The business then is just a component of it, how the team works, how the team collaborates, what the design of the game is. And ideally, the higher up you are from the actual product, the less say you have in any one of those things, and the more you're trying to influence the people actually making those decisions.
So in your studio, what version of a product leader do
that's
you have?
That's a great question. Right now, because we're a small studio, I am that person. I'm the person playing the product role. That will change really soon. But again, it's me, but it's not just me. So a lot of product and design decisions have, for instance, so far, even at this early stage, been made by my CTO, who's doing a lot of the actual building. Going back to what I was saying, that cliche of having people closest to the metal trying to make as many decisions about how to do things as possible is kind of the platonic ideal. Thankfully, we've been able to do that. A lot of the cool things about the design of our first game and our first prototypes have been made by the engineer who has to build it. And so my job a lot of times is just kind of say, okay, this is what we're trying to do. This is the experience we want to give players. This is, I'm trying to help them think about what the end goal of that is. And sometimes it is saying, okay, I think we should try this and this. But most of the time it's that, and then followed up by, yeah, but that's going to be a lot of that's going to be a lot of work. Or what if we did this instead? And again, as long as it's moving us towards the same goal, especially faster and often better, it goes, okay, well, let's try that. And there have been a few times when that hasn't worked, and I went back to my old idea, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But the point is, we try to operate in a way that ideally I make less and less decisions, especially specific ones, as the longer we go on. So in my company, I definitely have that product vision. The people we bring in need to fit into that philosophy where we want that. But there are definitely smart product people that think along those lines already. And we've had wonderful product people who've already been helping us in different ways. And they're all absolutely smarter product people than me. So it's just a question of who we bring on board and when we bring them on board. But right now it's me a lot, and hopefully that's changing really, really soon. And even when it is me, you don't want your CEO making your product decision, even though it's a small company, and that is my background. And the game is very much, I'd say, my vision. It's that's my job is to fix that, to make it our vision more and more. And thankfully, I've got some people, but I'll be bringing in more people who will take it over from me and make it there. So I'm excited to see what that looks like.
As a recruiter, we were recruiting for studios where the CEO was very much hands-on or had the final say on some things. And I could always feel, speaking to the hiring managers, that causes tension. But you said it's not a good idea. Could you elaborate as why it's not a good idea? Isn't it a good thing that you, who have all this vision, is kind of also the one making the minutiae as well?
Clearly, I think it's not. I think it's a flaw. I mean, again, sometimes it's a matter of just a function of the size of the studio. When you've only got 10 people, 20 people, even 100 people, the closer you are to one person and the other person's the CEO, the more that person naturally has to be involved. We all have to do lots of things. That's part of the nature of a startup, a small company. You wear more hats the smaller the company is. Part of growing up through, a lot of the companies you listed were different phases of being startup, different sizes. Some were like 5-person companies, some were 10, some were 5 and became 20. Some were, they all went through different evolutions. And also just learning and reading about these things. That is part of the challenge of growing a company, is learning how to let go of your name, your company, this thing you built. It was your idea, there's a lot of your ego that's tied up in these things. And even if it's not your ego, it's your livelihood. It's your baby. I mean, like you love this thing, hopefully. And if you do, you can even make mistakes with the right intentions. I may have already made these mistakes. I may continue to make them, but definitely think it's a mistake to do it any longer than you have to. And if you have the luxury of having people around. I mean, that's part of what I'm saying is I thankfully know some really great product people and have come to know some really great product people. And so I'd be very happy if I could make, the nitty gritty of these problems theirs. And the more they feel like they own these things, the more likely it's going to be something better. I mean, that is my overarching philosophy about products, not just in games, but it's not just to say that kind of anything that's big enough is inherently collaborative, but I really do believe in the Agile Manifesto and lowercase a Agile, which means not so much corporate Agile, but the spirit of, you want the people who are enacting the plans to shape the plans. So if I'm doing that, yeah, I'm not surprised that those companies are annoyed at their CEO. The CEO maybe can't even help himself. Maybe he doesn't even realize he's doing it. God, if that's what I help some company do and make some company better by some CEO going, am I the baddie? It's not that they're a bad person, but we all make mistakes, and it can be hard to let go, and it's hard to find that balance. It's not easy. I am going to make that mistake, even though that I'm saying that's what I'm all about. But I do think being intentional about that makes a big difference and can cause you to say, and then can give people who work for you, maybe don't have as much power as you do, to maybe challenge you and go, okay, well, you're the CEO. Maybe Jeremy, back off. And you go, right, that is what I'm about. So again, it's also about giving people the psychological safety to say, are you living your own values, and do you think what you're doing here is right? And yeah, you're still the boss, so you can be like, yeah, I am. I don't care. But I think you create a much healthier, better company and a better product the more you can adhere to that.
I want to ask you, how do you get to that stage? If I'm the CEO who wants to give more autonomy, make people own their product decisions, how do I go from that not happening to them having more ownership?
It's hard. A lot of it starts with the stuff that a CEO is supposed to do, and a leader. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a CEO, or this is just true of a lot of places I've been, and part of what's given me the arrogance to try to be a CEO is that a lot of my role has been the CEO of the team or the CEO of a studio, where that's a lot of it is setting the culture of how you make product decisions. A lot of what I did on Merge Dragons was copying Ilka from Supercell's Inverting the Pyramid talk. That really fit in with a lot of what it gave nice clarity to. I actually hadn't even seen the talk yet, but it was totally exactly what we were doing, which was trying to make as many decisions come from the people that are the domain experts and not necessarily the people that have the most seniority. And that meant that, if it's an engineering decision, try to have that idea or, the solution for that come from that engineer. And you as a leader is saying, this thing's important, that thing's important. And then also asking questions where you're saying, what do you think is important? What would you do to make this game better? What would you do to, we had a problem with frame rate. Start with a problem. I think our frame rate is bad. Do you agree? And then the QA manager holds up their phone that is just hard frozen due to thermal damage protections because the game was running terribly. And they went, yeah, we kind of weren't prioritizing them for a long time. We actually did a whole deep dive and we have a list of things we want to do, but we just, for various reasons, haven't been able to do them. Really? I mean, that's basically what happened. And with one of our best updates, that's basically at the start of our hockey stick was when we took on some of those things. And, you don't know how bad a problem often is until you start addressing it. And you also don't know how easy it is. They're like, I gave them a list of things that they could do in 2 weeks and that they could QA in 1 week. I was like, if it fits in that box, you tell me what those things are. Make sure you and QA agree on that. I didn't know what they were going to put in the box. I didn't know that apparently the way we loaded our scene could have been done more efficiently, and we were doing it at the same time as we were doing network calls. This is me vaguely remembering what happened, and that there was a better way to do that in Unity. That came from an engineer. Of course, I wouldn't know how to do that. And then you leave room for that, and then QA goes, yeah, we could QA that one in a little bit of time. Another idea they had, they couldn't. We just did it later. So they decided what was in the box. They decided how they wanted to approach it. They had buy-in from the people they were collaborating with that they could actually execute this plan. And frankly, they were energized by knowing that it was their work and that they could go and be like, I've been wanting to do this. I have excitement. This was my idea. You get more throughput from people when they know it's their work and not just a task. And then you get them in the mode of thinking, what can I do next? And so your job as a CEO is to get them in that mode. As again, CEO of the product, CEO of the team, whatever it is, the leader of the team and the company. Your job is to get everyone solving the problems, and your job is to thus frame those problems. And but give them the freedom to be the ones who go, well, I'm just a junior engineer. I don't know nothing. Again, there are problems that can come with that as well. But you want to set frameworks for where even that junior engineer who may have more confidence than capability, that can happen. You need to create frameworks for those. That's kind of a separate thing. But if you can get everyone kind of operating that way, yeah, you just get a lot more productivity. You get a better game.
It feels like that we're moving from giving them tasks, but we're more giving them the problem, and then they can decide what the tasks are for the problem.
You just get more velocity out of people if you can. I mean, again, the bigger you get, the harder that is. And the harder it is to then go, okay, different bigger companies, they have struggles where, okay, you have to kind of create little groups. I think that's one way that some companies solve it. And frankly, I'm less good in much larger teams where you have to take out that. But again, my understanding of this, this applies to the U.S. military, and those are giant, frequently top-down organizations, and they operate it by these same principles. Maybe not to the same ends, but to take a military example, you don't want a general shooting your guns. That means something's screwed up. You want these things to happen. So if you're in the combat, again, not to go to a dark space, but if you're in combat, you have to make decisions for yourself, and you have to feel like you can do that. So it's about preparing people for these tough moments and then giving them the autonomy to make their own decisions. So you are always trying to focus more on the goals and less on the task, the higher up you are, and the further you are away from the problem. And then the people closer to the problem, you want them shaping what this kind of sub goals, what those look like. And then giving information, being like, this is not going to happen for XYZ reason. And we are close to the problem, and here's why this isn't working. Could we try something else? We had this idea. When you're having those situations, that's really good. And if they don't have to take things up the chain and down the chain to make those decisions, they go, hey, I knew. Again, I think in the military they call it command intent. There's this really good book by Jocko Willink about leadership that talks about that. People can kind of make the right decision without needing to go talk to their boss's boss's boss. You're just going to move faster and do better things. And move faster and break fewer things and make more things. So that's hopefully, again, I say this, I'm a pacifist, but I do think that there's definitely organizational learnings to take from complicated and high stakes things like that.
You mentioned there that you prefer working in smaller studios, I guess, versus larger studios. Did I get that when it comes to product? So there's people listening to this who might be working in a bigger studio and love this idea, but potentially have that problem where we have the right intentions, but how do we actually put this in practice? Like, I was wondering, because you've had the experience, like, how do you feel like we maximize the ownership in a larger studio?
I think it's super complicated. I think it has to kind of start really, frankly, with the people at the top of that organization. And they have to be comfortable that is actually what they want. It is sometimes harder you can always pilot things. Having groups that kind of do their own thing and experiment, that is something you could do in a large organization where you say, okay, we've got 100 people, a 20-person team can handle this task in this way, and we can kind of see how that works. But you have to actually support that it might not work at first, that you are taking a risk, and that you're going to be hopefully supportively analytical about how that goes. But more pointedly, that's not what I think I've been successful at. I think I've been in those larger groups, but I've seen it be hard. I've seen how it hasn't happened, and I don't think I have my thoughts about how I would do things differently to make that happen. And my first answer is which is that, you kind of have to make sure that everyone really wants that. If you are, say, a fairly waterfall organization, which a lot of AAA companies are, things come from the top. They have an idea. Maybe it came from marketing. And again, not that marketing is the bad guy, but they go, some executive who's not marketing says, marketing says this, the focus group said that. So you have to do this, and you have to do it in this day by this date. And you're doing that. That happens a lot. I think that's a bad way to make games. I don't think all AAAs work like that. In fact, who is it? Rare with Sea of Thieves, the group that's making that. They're like one of the most progressive development groups in the world. They're giant. A lot of course, Baldur's Gate 3. Everyone loves them because they should. But again, there are big teams that work in a really smart, super efficient way. Even a lot of Fortnite is founded in really smart gas SaaS principles, and a lot of people that are really, really good at having cross-functional groups. But there's other teams I'm aware of, not necessarily ones that I'm a part of, and I won't name names in that case. But they, friends will be working with them and say, my 100-person engineering team is not talking to my 100-person production team. They don't talk to each other, which is kind of jaw-dropping, but it's incredibly common. I've experienced similar things to that where you end up in silos, and it's because the organization thinks to operate in domain silos, and then they kind of come together and they operate they may say that they do agile, but at best case, they're doing some sort of corporate agile, scrum.org, whatever type stuff, which I don't believe in.
Why don't you believe in that?
The idea of strictly prescribed agile is it's so antithetical to the principles of agile. I can't even begin to describe it. I mean, I think, I've done Scrum. I think again, if you have freedom to apply principles based on a team and the structure of a team, that's good. Agile is literally built. It's in the name. It's built on agility. But if you are built to strict structures and dogma about the actual execution of things, you're just hurting yourself. One thing I didn't understand until lately was why different companies, and it goes back to a question you asked earlier about the structure of product, why different companies have different structures for product teams. Some have a producer at the top and then a product manager under them. Some have a co-lead with a product manager and a producer. Some have like a game director / VP, which is kind of like the structure I had at Merge Dragons. And I've worked in all of these, and a lot of them have worked really, really well. But the difference to me, and I always get asked, like, oh, well, what's the best structure? It's like, it's what's best to the people you have and to the way your company works. So cookie cutter structures and cookie cutter, this team has to be Kanban, and all 500 teams in this company are all Kanban. Standardization has certain values, but it has mega costs, especially in games. And the people are not Legos. That's just not how we are. And so people may have weird combinations of skills, and if you can adapt your team to those skills and your basically development practices to the team and to the skills, it's easier to optimize it. But my belief is that corporate agile basically says, no, you have a scrum master and you have this person and this person. It's like, well, that can be what a team needs. It might be what a team needs at a certain phase, and it can be really useful for them. I've had a wonderful scrum experience, but I've had a lot of really bad ones and people that were pretty much dogmatic about it. And those people may have been smart people, but they were acting foolishly, in my opinion. There's my hard take.
No, it's good to understand like the reasoning behind it. I want to take this to the perspective of someone new to product or new to the industry. And if you just think back to when you started, like, what do you wish you told yourself then about product?
I mean, exactly what I've been talking about. I mean, maybe I was self-describing by thinking that I'm a smart person acting foolishly. Because I've definitely, it's debatable how smart I am at any given point, particularly when I was junior. I was a dumb kid. But I thought I was so smart and I thought I had every answer. I was hired into EA to be an American football expert. And people told me, you know so much about American football. And I took that to mean I know everything. And all these are the people that are making Madden that have played professional football, which I definitely haven't. That I don't have any room to learn from them. And I wasn't like, it's not like I wasn't willing to learn anything from anyone, but I thought I knew better. And the way I design things, notice all the eyes I'm using. The way I designed things was in kind of in a solo ivory tower. And so it was explicitly waterfall. Here's my design. It's 20 pages. It's beautiful. It's covered every edge case. I mean, that's completely moronic, but I believed it. And then I'd give it out to engineers and I would try to get as much, polish on it. And then they'd have to go and take my stupid ideas that had all kinds of specifics that they had to work around, and they didn't know how much room they had to change things. It was just kind of take this monolithic thing. Probably got very bored reading all this detail that I put into things, and maybe even miss some details, and maybe even miss the core spirit of what I was trying to convey. So it made worse features, and it made the games I worked on worse when I approached things that way. So thankfully, a much smarter, more senior engineer than myself, I will name drop him, Myra Wasserman, pulled me aside and basically told me that people hated working on my designs. And that was the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. And it completely changed how I look at things. And I got laid off from that job, rightfully, shortly after. He'd probably been in like a management meeting and they'd be like, who to get rid of? And like everyone was like, Stein, I don't know if it went down like that, but that's how I imagine it. And so I had some time to think about it with my next job, being like, okay, that wasn't good. I lost my dream job. What do I do? And I definitely thought about what Meyer said to me for maybe a year while I went and did sports editing again, which was great. And when I was determined to go back to games and be like, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to see how right he was. And ever since then, that's how I've tried to approach things. And I don't think it's an accident that my career has been on a very different trajectory since then. Sort of making better features, making better games. People who made games with me liked working on designs with me. People, seem to want to work again, particularly when we get to collaborate. So, you know, do unto others is done unto you. It applies to kind of anything. It's definitely applies to collaboration and making games. So that I wish I'd learned earlier. I'm glad I may not may not be making games today if I hadn't gotten that hard lesson early on.
What was the key difference from the Jeremy that was at EA and then the one that came after when it came to that collaboration? Like, what was the key change?
Going back to what we spoke about earlier in the video, instead of saying, here are all the specifics of what we have to do and what it looks like, and here I filled a box for you, go do it. It's more saying, hey, I'd like this box to solve these problems and provide these things. What do you think? So creating a framework, you still have that responsibility. But even being open to the conversation and then be like, that's not going to fit in this box. We can't find that. We need to make this 2 weeks. Or we need to break this, whatever that conversation. But most of the time, say you do your job all right and you come up, you've already done what can happen in a collaboration, in a conversation. And those, even if you're using documentation, which again violates some of the agile principles, conversations over documentation, I believe is one of them. But that it's okay to write things down, but when you write things down, again, it's to frame things and be like, okay, here's an example of what I'm trying to do. Here's a visual, here's a diagram, here's whatever. And then coming back to those people and saying, okay, whether, again, it can be on Teams, it could be on Slack, whatever, or it could be on person or whatever, Zoom. But as long as you're having those conversations, like I did a design session this morning over a WhatsApp audio call, and it felt great. But a lot of the work was just setting the box and saying, okay, I'm trying to do this with this feature. Oh God, that has this and this knock-on effect. My engineer said to me, okay, well then let's take these other two things that are more important, and then had a similar thing with another one. So, well, what if it only needed to do this? Oh, I was actually thinking about that. And he had like a design in his brain for how we could accomplish what we were trying to give the player. I was like, oh, great. And he's going to go because he knew that it was his idea. He's going to go and just want to have the energy to go do that. I'm not going to have to prod him to remind him to build this. He's a wonderful engineer. I don't have to do that anyways, but he's just going to have energy to do that. And it's going to be exciting. And when he sees it and people like it, it's going to just feel very satisfying. So that's the big change, is that instead of them feeling like they are enacting my tasks, they are just getting a little bit of help to direct their energy efficiently to do whatever problems they want to solve. And that's another big one, is especially with engineers, frame things as a problem. Engineers live to solve problems. We all like to figure out things, but engineers especially, that is a big superpower if you can do that and say, okay, what are we trying to do here? This is the thing they can't do. And then they go, okay. They love architecting things and building cool, novel solutions, but solutions is the key word there, because that comes from a problem.
What do you enjoy most about your job?
When the stuff I'm saying I care about actually happens, when you can see it at the end, you go, okay, we made something fun. We see that this problem that we thought we saw with the game, this thing that we thought it was missing, actually resonated with players. Like, that's part of it. If you can do that, and then you can go back to the team and be like, hey, remember when I said this was a bad idea and we did it anyways? And how, Nick or Jeff or, Karen, whoever, remember when I told Karen that she was wrong, but we tried anyways? Karen was right. That was genius. When you can, like, those are the most fun, when you can kind of come back, and because it's not, again, it's still selfish when you're like, I was dumb and Karen was smart, especially when you're a leader. It is still self-serving, because hopefully when you're making games, you are trying to make a better and better product, something that is fun and keeps the light on. It makes money and it's fun and people play it. So that's good. Everyone knows that they can, keep their job tomorrow. Those are the two things a game kind of needs to do. It is a business and an art. So if you're satisfying those needs, great. But you know that you can satisfy those needs well into the future because you've got a team of hungry people that now feel more safe saying, this is not just about appealing to authority or, whoever the hippo, the highest paid person's opinion. That's not how this team, this pod, this company runs. I know that even though I'm far from the highest paid person, I suspect I'm not the highest paid person in this room. I have just as much say in things that I know the most about, and people will listen to me. I may be an introvert, and I know that people are going to listen to me. Again, like I've definitely failed at bringing out the introverts or the person who has, the lowest. But that's what keeps me up at night. What lots of things do now that I'm a founder. But traditionally, okay, well, how did I screw that up as a leader? But when it's the opposite, when you actually did get the quiet person who's really smart and just doesn't like talking in the room, you get their idea implemented, especially if you actually disagreed with it, but you give room for those people to try things, go fast and learn. That's great. And then again, like if you try the person's idea and it didn't work out, you would have to then take responsibility as a leader. You have to create psychological safety where you go, okay, well, look, I while I may have disagreed with it, we may have disagreed with it. You try not to make it about that person's like, I decided to do it and I thought these things were good about it. And maybe we just need to change a little bit about it and try something. So you definitely don't want to, when we fail, the leader fails. When we succeed, you try to make sure that the people that help that leader succeed get recognized as much as possible, especially when it might have go against your own instincts. It's very fun. It's liberating to be able to create those situations because you're going to create more of them. And that means that someday this game that's a living entity is going to be better and better.
How do you bring that out of the introverts on your team? How do you bring out their ideas?
Well, that's actually one of the techniques is kind of allowing different frames for discussion and ideation. So again, just like different teams can have different structures, different people respond to different frameworks of discussion. So you may not be the highest paid person in the room, but you may be the loudest. I've definitely been that person where I'm just the one who talks the most, the person who takes the air out of the room. So so things like brainstorming and other types of ideation are great to get the ideas from people like me. If you want to talk, then create a forum where the talkers get to put their ideas together. The inverse of that would be something like having, say, a session where we go, okay, let's state the goal. We are trying to, I don't know, have a new map, new mini map in the game. I think the things that are wrong with the mini map are this and this and this, and it may be framed in a different way, which is like, hey, our players are saying this. Here's the data we have. This is getting stuck. Here's some analysis that someone did that shows different mini maps in other games of our genre. Whatever it is. Here's the heat map, and here's how many people are disabling in our game versus other games in our company that show you that they aren't doing that. Something's gone wrong, and maybe we did some iterations that caused our mini map to be different. I shouldn't take that as an example because I don't do mini maps in almost any of my games, but that could happen. The point is, you take that feature and you go, okay, look, we want a better mini map, and you try to keep it not specific, and we have enough time to work on this over the next 2 weeks. In the next sprint, we'll have room. Say you're doing sprints. Next sprint, we'll have room to work on the mini map. We agreed we can do the mini map, but we're not quite sure what the design is. So I have these suggestions about how to do that. If you guys come back to me in 2 weeks with exactly what I just suggested to you, I will be disappointed. So go out of the room and just think. And that then creates room for some of the people that are more okay, I like to process a little bit more. I'm not going to just chat up, or maybe I'm just not confident enough yet to kind of go and think. And then they can have their own sessions. They can write things on Slack that might be where they might write, a novel to you or to their teammates or to their, whoever they're collaborating with. But that means that it's not putting the dependency on their willingness to put themselves out there, and maybe communicate in a different way. So that's a long way of saying try to create multiple avenues of communication and ideation for a team. And again, maybe you have a team of only introverts. Maybe you have a team of primarily extroverts. If you have pretty much just extroverts on the team, build a process for that. Just brainstorm all day long. Just workshop. Like have that be a lot of your team's process, but be watching for the people that aren't talking. And maybe they have something to say, and maybe try to think of ways to draw them out.
I'm curious now that you said that. Is that a good idea to have an entire team of introverts or extroverts? As a founder,
probably not.
As a founder,
probably not. I mean, again, I don't know. I haven't been in that extreme of an example, but maybe I was too busy talking to notice the introverts. I don't know. Probably not. Again, like diversity is not just diversity has all kinds of loaded meanings, but I mean, it has a functional purpose in having just people that are different. People.
Yeah, I've heard diversity of thought has a very good definition for diversity when it comes to like a game studio, because it covers.
Yeah,
everything.
I mean, you don't want to go an American football thing. You can't have a team of just quarterbacks. That's a terrible team. Or if it's just quarterbacks and wide receivers, who's going to play defense? Like it just that's a bad structure. And even if it's just not skill set, you need within, say, wide receivers, you need a diversity of talents. You need the really fast guy who can get down the field. You need the person who's very reliable in tight situations. You need the person who is maybe a generalist. Maybe one of them gets hurt and they can fill into multiple roles. That's team construction. So same thing applies to anything. Again, I could go on and on with sports. Football, again, you not only do you not just want a team of strikers, but even within strikers on, say, France, Olivier Giroud plays a different role from Antoine Griezmann, plays a different role from Mbappe. And they all, because they do their different roles, Giroud does a lot of hold-up play and is a very good passer and is a big guy and is good at heading the ball. Mbappe is very, very fast. He's good at getting around defenders. Griezmann's also a good dribbler, but what he's really special at is putting pressure on a defense. So even though he's a striker, he's very good defensively. So maybe Mbappe doesn't have to do as much work there. So this applies, of course, to those who don't care about sports. But the point is, you definitely need a variety of not just roles, but talents. And, you don't know who you have and how those pieces fit together, but you definitely need balance in the group, whether it's a balance of introversion and extroversion, or definitely gender makes a big difference. But it turns out, having worked with people from a number of different countries, they approach things differently. And while it can take some adjusting to working with people from a different culture or a different way, it took a while to adjust to Antoine Griezmann. It took a while to adjust to Mbappe. They had to figure out how to work together. They didn't just start winning the first day they played together. It took a minute to figure out how they could combine together. That's part of the fun, hopefully. But there's a cost to learn how to work with people who are a little bit different from you or communicate different from you. But the payoff is literally world championships, or in the case of video games, much better games. So speaking of foolish things, people that are afraid of that are smart people who are being foolish.
This year has had a lot of change in the games industry. You've had a lot of change as well personally. I'm wondering what's changed with you the most over the last kind of 1 to 2 years when it comes to your career and the way you're looking at things.
Finally being brave enough to make my own game and my own company. It's funny talking to investors trying to make a new game. I've had, thankfully, a lot of success making existing games better, and that's different than making a new game. Along the way, though, I didn't know that how important it was for me to make the type of game and games that you're trying to make, and some of the stuff that goes into um, a lot of stuff that I really love and care about in terms of just work and making games is actually really well suited to startups. I was always afraid of going out on my own and kind of putting that out there, but I really didn't know if I would ever make something that was fun that I had created. And again, the I on that is misleading, and the thing that I'm making is with a lot of people's input.
But you founded it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it makes sense. Like you're
yeah. But
founding
even
this.
then, I'm co-founding it, and I've had changes into who our co-founders would be, and people I didn't know a year ago are now playing really key roles in what we're doing. But otherwise, it's a lot of my friends that I've known for over a decade that are you I've known for less. What is it now? A year. So I haven't known you that long, and you've been an important person in the journey. But there's all kinds of other people, a lot of people that are my friends that I started to kind of put myself out there and put out there what we wanted to do. And those friends went, "Oh my God, this is my dream game." And these friends are some of the most successful people I've ever known in games. Then people getting that excited, people I've never met before, but I've read about, or literally famous people going, "Oh, one said this would be bigger than social media." That I don't agree with. I'm not even sure they meant it, but getting that response from people has been crazy, and I didn't think we'd get anything close to that. Like that's not. It's not even what I would love it to happen at that point, but that doesn't seem like a realistic thing for stuff like that to happen. But the thing that I really didn't think was going to happen, or I know, is would I make a fun game? Because that is kind of the hardest thing to do. I say that, but that's what distinguishes games as a service from software as a service. Software games are a form of software, and I do not agree with people that say games are not software. Games are software that has to be fun and is part of its own discipline and its own, has its own needs. But you can learn a lot from, for instance, SAS principles and apply them to games. You just can't apply all of them, and you really do have to understand the fun part to actually make something. But early this year, we had our first prototype of this kind of very new type of game we were making, and I started playing it, and I couldn't stop playing it. And that was frankly shocking to me. Like I had an idea of what would be fun. I thought it could work, but I didn't know until I tried it. Like it just didn't seem real. It seemed like arrogant to like maybe that's weird, but I didn't know if it was going to happen. And there's still a lot of chance for us to screw it up as we make the game more and more complex and make it a fully fledged thing. And there's going to be all kinds of things that are going to prevent it from being a successful product, not just a game that worked well as an initial prototype. But now I know I have a game that is fun and I need to make it. And it went from something that I wanted to make to like, now I need to. Now, like, I can't believe that this thing that I want to play, I really want to play. And it's now my job to bring it in the world. So, like, yeah, it brings another level of pressure to it, but it also is so relieving. It's like, okay, well, it's the other stuff I was confident about, like, being able to get good people. It's, I don't know, just different things I felt more confident about. But it's scary, doing something that's got a different type of thing. So again, it may not end up being a successful game or series of games or what have you, but right now, you ask me today, I'm like, I ever version since, of course, some have been more and less fun than others, but like, I like just like playing my game now. And I'm just layering on things. And so, I always feel like we can get it back to a fun place, and still keep it within the vision of what we're trying to accomplish. And that's amazing. So again, I don't know if I'll be a good CEO. I don't know if this will be a great company. I don't know if this will be finally a great business product, but I feel a lot more confident about it just because that to me was the thing I didn't felt the least confident about. And I feel it's really, really hard to do. And again, thankfully good people are helping us make it happen.
Like someone might be listening to this who has similar experience in the sense that they aren't able to make that jump to start in the game, like what helped you make that jump to finding your own studio and actually having the confidence to do it?
A couple of different things. I was working on a project for a startup that was trying to help people understand a book about startups. Trying to make a different way of learning, a different type of learning software, and one of the subjects was entrepreneurship and startups. And so there was a lot of breaking down the concepts and the principles. And so I think reading, basically reading up literature on startups and what makes them successful. Watch some Y Combinator videos. Oh God, I wish I remember the guy's name right now. Michael, the Twitch guy, from Y Combinator. That guy's so smart. I've learned so much from him. But other people, I will name drop one person. I had a great conversation early on with Yeri Partnen from Sisu Ventures, and he when I talked to him, my concept was a very different thing, and it was really like a 1.5 of a different game as opposed to a fairly unique concept. And he challenged me on a few points, and I realized later they were very, very smart, and I kind of tried to be systematic about them. And one of them was, are you really solving a problem for anyone? Who is this actually for? Is this something that does that? And the other one was, at least for us, was like, especially in games, this is a big thing. And like games in 2024, but it's just, again, this is while I may not agree with all of his politics, Peter Thiel is a smart guy, and he phrases it in a very aggressive way. But competition is for suckers. So if you're just trying to do another 1.5, you're trying to make Call of Duty but a bit better. That wasn't what I was doing. Or trying to make Royal Match but a bit better today. That's a high bar. That's an incredibly high bar, and you better be awfully serious about it. And that's maybe not the easiest way to do things. I have never bought into the idea that any genre is stagnant and how it exists today won't be better. I think you just look at the first-person shooter genre and you just see over and over through history how things have gotten better. So it's not saying that don't go make a puzzle game. Go make a puzzle game, but bring something new to it. If you really want to create a big business, it's got to bring something big to that. And maybe that's exceptional polish and execution. But even the Royal Match guys, they were Toy Blast, Toon Blast, and a bunch of other like the best of the best games, and they just took that to another level. So you can do it, but frankly, a better way is to take some of your skills from making other stuff and try to address something new, solve a problem, solve something, make something, find a new, as wonderful Ray Mazza likes to say, find genre blends. I think bringing ideas from different genres is really great. So that's more the strategy I'm going for, and I'm not trying to compete with the existing incumbents. I'm trying to make a new thing for a lot of people that don't maybe play games that don't have this kind of experience for them right now. And that was part of the surprise. It's like, oh, that's actually fun. I think not just those people are going to like it. People that have the existing games are going to find maybe a complementary experience to what they're playing right now. So I would definitely say look at what people are. Read Peter Thiel. Read, just read about what startups goes into them. Just read and study as much as you can. Talk to founders. They've been through the pain. I've been so lucky to have so many nice founders, generalists, give their time, and just help me understand that what I'm doing is totally insane. And then, but it's still possible. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
I like that so much. I got some personal experience with this where I used to, after Vampire Survivors came out,
great game, brilliant game.
Yeah. But then the next 2 years, I remember it coming out. I played it, got it on the phone, 100%ed it. And then it felt like every other studio I spoke to were making the Vampire Survivor game. Like all the new ones, all the startups. It was like, yep, it's like Vampire Survivors, but a little bit different. And I'm like, just hearing what you're saying now, like it feels like they've eliminated the problem of coming up with an idea, but they got the bigger problem of having to now spend stupid amount of money to make a better Vampire Survivor than the Chinese Survivor.io version, which has stupid amount of money invested in it. And I'm like, why are we trading? Like, I get it. I feel like they're trying to reduce risk, but in essence have given them such a big problem. And your way of coming at it is, I feel like, a lot more achievable.
Again, it's not that the red, like, again, I'm not saying the red ocean isn't possible to swim in. Like, even just looking at those examples, you've got was it Deep Rock Galactic Survivor? I believe. God, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of the company because we worked with them. But the guys that did Deep Rock, yeah. So Ghost Ship, I'm pretty sure the people behind Deep Rock. But then they had a smaller Danish studio. They're both Danish. Developed that. Yeah, it's a great game. It's doing well for them. Great
It looks
reviews.
sweet. I'm looking at it now.
If you like Vampire Survivor, definitely. I mean, but again, they got the Deep Rock Galactic people behind it, and these people worked on a Subway Surfers game for us and did a really good job. So these are really, really good developers. I'm not saying the people making Vampire Survivors, but a bit better, can't do it. You just do you have the Deep Rock Galactic people and their IP helping you out? Then yeah, sure, go for it. If you don't, and again, even if you do have talented people and great IP, that's not always enough. But yeah, I definitely think there's a lot. Again, and that was my lesson. Like my lesson was, okay, I get what Peter Thiel is saying. Like I get why he was satirized in Silicon Valley, but I get that he also has a lot of wisdom, and it's very smart, and he's not the only person that says that. So they listen to people you may disagree with. That's always a good lesson, because you may learn something, and that was my lesson that I had to take, which was like, oh, I don't want to hear you that my idea of making this game but a bit better is probably not that exciting for anyone. And they were right.
I was going to say that is a big part of it. Like, if the product isn't exciting, then even if it's the correct product, but if you can't motivate the people that are going to work on it, because you're going to have so much motivation because it's your studio, but if you have a product that isn't that exciting, I think that's a big ask to get people really passionate.
Yeah, but I mean, even that's maybe giving me too much credit. I mean, that's one of the things they talk about with founders is like their resilience. The studios don't die when they run out of money. They run when they give up. And you need to do something that even when you feel like it's hopeless, you still want to make it happen. Like that's, there's a lot of companies that have found success, even when things were dire. I mean, one of the things I definitely remember from my time at Graham was just stories those founders would talk about, like where they were on their last paycheck, and they were they were basically not taking a paycheck as founders, or the company was about to die, and this is a company that went on getting bought for $250 million, just like very shortly after these things were happening, and the personal sacrifices they had to make, had to be something they really believed in. And so for me, I really, I had to look at who I am and what would motivate me. It's not really that I'm trying to be a billionaire. It's like I really want these kind of games to exist. And if I'm the founder, I'm going to be fine. Eventually I'll find the yellow brick road, so to speak. But the real thing is like, okay, so there's lots of different ways you can make money. What would get you up in the morning, and even when you feel like depressed or tired or exhausted or hopeless, like that would keep you plugging through? And that's proven to be really true. I've had plenty of setbacks on this journey, and I can't believe I have a game that's fun. Talk to me when the game's successful. There will probably be a lot more setbacks that come between then. So yeah, I think that was very important to me. Know what you need to motivate yourself. If it's billions of dollars, find something that feels like a safe bet. Like maybe go find your equivalent of the Toy Blast people and back that. Get into that red ocean, do it. Even if you don't care about match 3 games, that's fine. But you have to pick the thing that you think will get you out of bed. Resilience is really important.
Coming to a close now, my last question is around LinkedIn. You mentioned learning a lot from founders. So, very open question. Like, what does LinkedIn mean to you?
And that's exactly what it means. Who is it? End Dreams? Is it Glenn Bragg? Is that who you had?
Glenn Brace, yeah.
Sorry, Glenn. just I learned a lot from that talk. Just watching, that talk you did.
For context, I did a talk with Glenn about remote work. This was at the end of last year. I'll put some description in wherever anyone's listening to this. But yeah, go on.
So I haven't hit him up for a lot of like one-on-one time yet. I need to do that actually. It's on my list. But I watched that video a couple times. I've discussed it with other founders. I'm using Teams instead of Slack because of that. But just lots of different things. That's someone that I don't even know Glenn. But I reached out to him to say like, hey, that was great. He really put to voice a lot of things that are principles that, that's what happens a lot of times for people. It's like, you say something and they're like, wow, okay, you just put differently the thing that I kind of had in my head and validated that I'm not crazy. So it gives you a little bit more boldness to go forward with something. So listening to Glenn in that specific example was definitely something that pushed me to be like, okay, be more decisive, be more confident in doing different things. Okay, you're not crazy. So yeah, and then it just met a ton of different people. One of founders I won't name drop, but you've introduced me to a few founders who've been the coolest people, and they've helped me just understand different stuff, and of course, even building up the team, handling different stuff, just getting connected with different people. It's been incredibly useful. Meeting investors and different things, but the most enervating part, I'd say, has been meeting other creators. There was one person that made a game I love, and I saw him commenting on some post a few weeks ago, and I saw his name. I was like, I know him. Why are we second degree connected? Did he unfriend me? And then I realized, no. I've just never met this person. I've just been reading interviews with him for years. And so I just reached out to him on LinkedIn. We've had a couple of meetings now. Turns out he's awesome. And he may even help the company, but they're just different things. LinkedIn's fun, social network.
For sure. LinkedIn has been my life the last probably 8 months, I'd say. And everything you've mentioned so many different things there. You can meet new people, learn new things, and then hopefully do both of those things at the same time, right? You learn something from someone, then you actually meet them, and like we did, that's how we met. I'm preaching to the choir maybe, but yeah, it's just really cool to hear those different ways that
you're lucky we met.
Yeah, awesome. Where can people go to learn more about you, keep up to date as well? Because it's been very teasing. You listen to these stories, and what if someone wants to keep an eye out on what's coming next?
Well, yeah, look forward to the publishing of this podcast. I expect we'll have a little bit of more news coming from some various traditional outlets coming up pretty soon. Keep your eyes peeled. I will say the name of the company. We're actually not that stealthy, but for LinkedIn purposes, but we're called TTFN Games, and got some exciting people helping us out, and a fun game, and hopefully we keep it that way and we turn it into a big product, and then a lot of games follow out after that.
Very exciting, and I'm sure that will happen. Willing to put money into it even, and I've asked you a couple of times, so hopefully that will happen.
We'll make it happen.
So cool. Yeah, one day. Nice. And yeah, obviously, if anyone wants to connect with Jeremy, you can find him on LinkedIn at Jeremy Stein, and that goes for me too at Harry Foku. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Harry.